On Monday, Amy Coney Barrett will face the Senate Judiciary Committee for the first of 4 days of confirmation hearings. Initially, a number of Democrats refused to meet with her, but this week 6 members of the committee did grant her an audience. So what will be the hot-button issues this week? Let's bring back John Malcolm. He is the vice president for the Institute for Constitutional Government at the Heritage Foundation. And we're also joined by pro-life advocate and the author of Life is Winning: Inside the Fight for Unborn Children, Marjorie Dannenfelser. Marjorie, how do you think that Judge Barrett should handle the questions about abortion during this hearing to ensure that she's going to be able to get through? We know that it's going to come up. Democrats spend so much time talking about the issue. How should she handle it?
Sure. I think it's vital, and I'm sure she would not do this, that she not prejudice herself with any case that could come her way. She certainly cannot say what her opinion would be in a case that would potentially overturn Roe. What she will say, I'm sure, is that she believes in a jurisprudence that is constitutionally centered, that laws must align with the Constitution. That will be her job as judge. I know that it will come up. Of course, we know it'll come up. Look at Kamala Harris will be there. Our friends that are senators on the Republican side will no doubt have many moments to discuss how extreme abortion law is in this country. And it'll be important because there are 2 tracks. There, of course, is the most important thing, the confirmation hearing. But then there's also another track, which is a political track with Kamala Harris sitting right there. There are some important issues that should come to the fore, and I hope including court packing.
John, we know that Roe is going to come up, as Marjorie was talking about. There are going to be questions about whether it's a so-called super precedent. We're going to hear that, I think, a lot this week. Explain that debate for our audience. What does it mean, and why, and does it matter?
Well, a precedent is just what the Supreme Court has said about either a statute or the Constitution, and lower courts must follow it. The Supreme Court is not bound to follow its own precedent. It can overturn precedent if it wants to, and it periodically does. However, the justices know that there has to be a good reason to overturn precedent, because people rely on stability in the law. And so, the senators will want to get commitments from the nominees that some precedents are super precedents or super duper precedents that absolutely should not be overturned. And I expect that Judge Barrett will follow the same model that was actually set by Ruth Bader Ginsburg and followed by people like Sonia Sotomayor, that it would be inappropriate for her to comment on cases that would come before the court, and that she will offer, and this is a quote from Ruth Bader Ginsburg, no hints, no suggestions about how she might rule if confirmed to the high court.
RBG actually refused, I believe the number is 60 times during her confirmation hearings to respond to specific issues and cases. But John, what are some of the other issues or cases that could come up during the hearing, and what should we be listening for?
Oh, I think that her views on precedent, on originalism are going to come up. Obviously, the Democrats have said, well, she's criticized in writing Chief Justice Roberts for one of his opinions in one of the Obamacare cases, and there is an Obamacare challenge up before the court now. She wrote a dissent in a Second Amendment case that showed that she believes in robust Second Amendment rights and doesn't think it's the poor stepchild of the Bill of Rights. I'm sure she will be questioned about that. Those are all fair games. She can talk about her approach to cases, her general jurisprudential philosophies, but of course discussing the particulars of particular issues that are likely to come before the high court, that will be off limits, and she won't answer those questions.
John, you brought up the issue of Obamacare, and Democrats are trying to scare Americans over Obamacare, but does that ignore the court's doctrine of severability? And I think that Democrats are being fundamentally dishonest about the way that the court would operate during that case. What do you think about that?
Well, so there have been, 2 cases in which Obamacare has been upheld against challenges. There are new legal arguments that are involved in this case, and the issue of severability is very much involved in this case. So it is entirely possible, for instance, that a majority of the court could strike down the individual mandate, but find that it is severable from the rest of Obamacare, and Obamacare remains on the books. It's hard to tell exactly what the court will do. Each of these cases rises and falls on their own facts and their own legal arguments.
Marjorie, there are a lot of folks who have said for years that if you put another conservative on the court, Roe will be overturned, and that's going to end abortion rights in America. But, and you know this issue better than almost anybody, it's far from that simple, correct?
That's right. That's right. And, I mean, we can only hope that, but the far greater likelihood is that there'll be a few steps that there would be an erosion of Roe. The viability standard is tested by one of several cases that are coming: non-discrimination abortions, 20-week, 5-month limits, the heartbeat bill. There's several bills that are coming that could be tested by the court, and there could be a gradual erosion. Of course, we hope that it is overturned. And then if that does happen, your point is exactly right. What happens is the wheels of democracy are allowed to turn state by state, and the wheels of the people in those states are allowed to make their way into the law, so that once again, the court is not a super legislature on something so important, and legislatures again have the ability to pass the laws that reflect the will of the people of their states.
John, there's going to be a lot of bloviating. We saw it during Kavanaugh. I mean, it was unlike anything that I'd ever seen. What should people really be asking themselves about Amy Coney Barrett as they go through this week and they try to strip away all that nonsense? What should they really be thinking about?
Is she a good judge? Is she a fair judge? Is she going to follow the issues and follow the law? Is she going to be rigorous in her analysis? Is she a committed textualist and originalist who will interpret the words and phrases and statutes in the Constitution as they were understood at the time that the statute was passed or the constitutional provision was ratified? And I believe that if one looks at this in any kind of objective manner, that Judge Barrett will pass with flying colors.
John Malcolm, Marjorie Dannenfelser, thank you so much for your insights.